Today we have the instructional how-to video for the London's Shrimp Hut. I'm going to go over the operation, functions, and shutdown procedure of your brand new concession. I'm going to go ahead and start off up front. I'm not plugged into the generator due to the noise for the video itself. I do have my shore power connected, as you see there. But I do want to go over the generator and how it operates. Obviously you want to put your fuel in through here. Turn on the gas pitcock to the on position as indicated right here. You'll pull the choke lever. You will go ahead and put your plug in place, plugging it into this port here, keeping this in the off position, and then you will start. Once the unit is running, you will slowly push the choke back in. As long as you have good stable running motion at that point, then about 30 seconds later, cutting the power on. When you cut this breaker on, it's going to feed power to this plug, and at that point giving power to the trailer. Once you are finished at the end of the day, I always recommend going ahead and turning that breaker off and then turning the switch to the off position and letting this unit run till the fuel is out of the carburetor. At that point, just make sure you turn that switch off so it doesn't drain the battery. Got your exterior lights on, flip up door in place. For the counter, flip up counter, use the middle screw as a guide point. Pressing upward allows that to flip up to a fixed position, as you see here. There is going to be tabs that will roll out. This one's on the outside. To the right side, that is going to be on the inside of the trailer itself. As you'll see, I have a live propane tank here hooked up for the gas itself. Both of your tanks are empty. While I'm outside, I'll go ahead and show you the water connection. So I'm bypassing the tank and water pump, which is this port here. So if you want to fill your freshwater tank and go to an event, put your food grade water hose through here, be able to fill up the tank, and at that point you can go mobile with having fresh water on board and using the water pump. If you need to clean the tank, and periodically you will need to use some sanitizer or bleach, you can do so through that port itself. But today I am bypassing the tank and pump, and I'm hooked into the city water side. So this is the pressure side. No pump, no tank on this side. With your food grade water hose, it'll allow you to move this flap and lock up so nobody can tamper with the water supply going into the trailer at the trailer itself. Got your waste drain valve located here. So once you remove the cap itself, you'll hook up your 3-inch RV waste hose. Once that hose is hooked up, you'll pull the lever all the way back out in the open position. Everything will drain out of the wastewater tank. Once that's completed, you definitely want to make sure that you shut that back and remove the hose and put the cap back on in place for transportational needs. Obviously, with this wastewater tank, I would definitely recommend every so often putting a little bit of bleach in the drains of the sinks so that it will help with any of the smell that is in the tank when you do rid the wastewater out of it, just from food content from the drain water. Got your cable latch located here on the door. That way your screen can be able to stay fastened for fresh air to come in. We do have your 2-stage regulators. They are both 900,000 BTU. We're only running one regulator for the purpose of this video. As you'll see, it's in the on position. I have gas going on the trailer itself. Again, you can be able to latch that door. That way you have adequate fresh air coming into the unit. So before I ever turned propane on the trailer, I made sure that all of those fryers were in the off position, and I turned the exhaust fan on. I want to make sure that exhaust fan's on always before turning this gas on. At that point, I turn the valve on, feeding pressure from the tank to this line here. This would be in the off position, running sideways. And when you turn this on, the biggest thing you want to do is when you rotate this to where it's in line, as you see here, you want to listen through the regulator to make sure there's no gas flow at that point. There should never be any gas that you hear running through this regulator unless all of the fryers are in working capacity. If you do hear gas flow on initial startup, immediately shut this valve off and call your local gas company to come out and inspect the piping, as there might be a break in the piping itself that runs under the trailer due to something that's, it could be road debris, whether it be a tire off of a semi or a block of wood or a rock even. We'll go ahead and show you the fryers in operational position. As you see, thermopile lit. That's in the on position. Of course, when you're done, just make sure that you turn that back to the off position. I do want to go ahead and go over how I initially start up all deep fryers. Of course, again, before the gas is ever turned on, this is in the off position and that's in the off position. I always start off with this process. I'm doing this twice to make sure this thermostat connects with this gas valve. At that point, then I rotate to where the L meets that red dot and allows you to push in. As you can see the motion, you have to push and hold here and administer fire to the thermopile. Once that thermopile is lit, continue to hold this pilot button in for 10 to 15 seconds. Once you can slowly release this button, as long as your thermopile is still actively burning, at that point then you can rotate to the on position, and at your choice of time, control the thermostat to the desired temp. Drain valve, in your paperwork in one of the refrigeration units, there'll be a tube for each fryer that you can thread in, be able to open up and release the contents that are in the vat above. You always need to extinguish everything out of the vats before you go into transportation, as it will make a very, very big mess. There is no lid that I have yet found that will hold the contents in place for transportation. If you choose to remove this cover for lighting the thermopile, just make sure that you put this cover back in place. As you see, it just clips on. The reason for doing that is, if not, that flame will come outward, and if any oil was to drip down, you could potentially have a grease fire. So this cover always needs to be back in place. Sometimes from transportation, they can fall off. All of your baskets, and of course the crumb pokers, to be able to relieve for the draining purposes itself. Definitely want to make sure you have plenty of these lighters in place. We'll go ahead and turn off the gas, as it's no longer needed for the remaining portion of the video. Again, I'm going to turn off the gas valve as well as the tank itself. Always make sure not only the valve but your tank is turned off. With the gas off, we can go ahead and turn off the exhaust fan as it's no longer needed. We do have the control head for the fire suppression system. This system, you can manually pull the trigger and swing the, for the contents to come out. Obviously, you do not want to set off the fire suppression system unless it is needed. Everything in that tank would come running out of these nozzles and shut your operation down. These filters are removable and will need to be cleaned each day, is what I would highly recommend, just to save from the strenuous work of cleaning the grease out of the filters. What grease does not collect in the filters will run down to the drip tray, and here at the very end on those 2 dowel pins is the grease cup that sits behind here. Definitely monitor that each day. As you can see, this gap here, you do not want anything like that when you put the filters back in place. These filters will slide from side to side, and you want to make sure that gap is as minimal as possible, as you see here. So when you put those filters in, obviously it's not going to be slid down as far to the left side or the right side. Just making sure that you do in fact get those filters, the tolerance, closed up. One recommendation for why we always recommend having the exhaust fan on when the propane's on is these sensors are rated at 500 degrees. Nobody other than a licensed fire suppression company needs to tamper with those. However, if you do run the deep fryers without the hood system on, 500 degrees could come very fast, and as soon as those sensors do break, everything again in this red tank is going to come out, extinguishing out of the nozzles. You will need to have a local fire suppression company come out, as well as your local fire marshal, to come out and tag and certify the system itself. Go ahead and show our plugs in operational order. Oops, sorry. On the passenger side of the V-nose, right quick while we're already down here, so we have the battery for the 12-volt lighting system and water pump. We have the battery charger. And we have our 100 amp panel, all 20 amp independent circuits. Outside of that panel is your power cord that will pass down through that cable hatch so that you can plug into your generator or shore power. Plenty of shelving up in the upper V-nose. Got your cabinets set up in place as you'd desired for those. Then we got a plug, there we go. This is the plug below the concession window. You do have your 2 manual opening roof vents to allow fresh air to come in. Just make sure that before you go in transport, you do close those tightly, as crosswinds can damage, if not break, and ruin the roof vents. These are the front 2 lights up at the front of the trailer, and then we have ones going to the back. So we have your glass door cooler here at 38 degrees. Switch to turn it off is located there. Plug in between the glass door and the fridge. It sits at 32 degrees. And we have our freezer still chilling down. It's at 4 degrees. Let's see, the doors are locked. All right, so we got paperwork and contents for each deep fryer. So 2 of the deep fryers in here. Also paperwork for the unit itself and its original contents. Definitely take the time to review over your paperwork for proper cleaning and maintenance. It's highly recommended. The other 3 manuals and drain valves for the other 3 fryers are located in here in the freezer. to turn on the AC unit. Rotate around like this is on high and cool. Itself. Definitely prep and clean up is what that's most utilized for. Got your water pump switch located here. Again, it's in the off position. You've got your water heater here. Fresh water tank, which we are bypassing. So this is the drain valve for the tank, first one. This is the drain valve through the floor to relieve the tank, and that would be in the off position, that would be in the off position. And then you can hook up an air hose to here and open this valve and be able to blow out the water lines past the freshwater tank. Do make sure that you unplug the water heater that is plugged in here right in the middle of the 3-bin sink, as electricity to a water heater with no water in it will burn up the element instantly. Before I plug the water heater in, I made sure I had continuous water flow out of both faucets before I ever plugged it in. Just turn up the water speed. There we go. So it's still heating up, 115 degrees, obviously showing it's working. Still got probably 5-10 more minutes before it actually gets completely to temp. We do have your mop sink set up in place. So before closing down the unit, again, you're going to have all the deep fryers in the off position. The gas is in the off position. You want to go ahead and make sure that you turn that exhaust fan switch off. Make sure anything that's plugged in can be unplugged. Make sure those roof vents are fully closed and tight. I would recommend, if you're not running the generator going down the road to keep something cold, turning the switches off to the actual units themselves. And right behind the freezer is your switches. You want to make sure those are all in the off position. You want to shut and latch and lock the door as needed. Again, always make sure those tanks are strapped in place for proper safety for transport. Pin in the cage, straps on the around the tank itself. Again, those propane lines do run under the trailer, so do be very attentive to when you turn on the gas, making sure that you do not hear any gas going through the system. If you do, immediately contact your local gas plumber to come out and inspect the piping below the trailer. If you use the crank jacks, it is very important to make sure that those are in the upright position before transport. But if you do choose to use them, you want to make sure that you scotch and block the wheels so that there is no way of movement on the trailer. And then with a 3/4 inch socket and an impact gun, you can apply equal pressure to be able to lift the trailer. But it's not for the purpose of lifting the whole trailer 2 foot off the ground. I have people that do that and damage, if not break, the jacks. They're not covered under warranty under that aspect. So I want, these are for stabilization. They're not meant to lift the whole trailer side 2 foot off the ground. As always instructed, make sure that your blinkers, running lights, and brake lights are always in the functioning position and working. Make sure your lug nuts are always tight. Make sure you have adequate air pressure in your tires. Once a year, you'll need to remove this cap and apply grease to the Zerk fittings for proper and long-lasting bearing life for all wheels. If you do not have a grease gun, you can go to your local trailer place near you to be able to have that serviced. Pressing upward allows that to rotate to a downward position, and then being able to close the door and latching on both sides, putting a pin or a lock in the door holder itself. Again, you want to make sure that your power cords and drain hoses and any extension cords you have are all put up. Everything is safe and sound and locked up. We thank you for taking the time to view this video. Please feel free to give us a call if you have any questions, any suggestions, any comments at all. We make these videos to help educate those that have never operated equipment before, or their new staff that might be coming aboard. We thank you so much for your business and wish you the very best.